for planting for food and jobs has laid the foundation for the agricultural transformation of our country. We are able to say that our country is now a net exporter of food, and we no longer have to import basic foods like plantain and tomatoes. Mr. Speaker, Ghana rice is the preferred choice in an increasing number of our homes as the growing, processing, and packaging of rice become a more established and attractive industry. During this COVID crisis, we have mercifully been spared the specter of food shortages. On the contrary, thanks to planting for food and jobs, food has been in abundance in our markets across the country. Throughout the ages, food processing has provided the takeoff point for the industrialization of many nations. We are taking that lesson to heart as we pursue the goal to industrialize, modernize, and create jobs for the young people of our nation. The One District, One Factory program is part of the anchor on which we're building the comprehensive industrialization of our country. Much of the work has now been done to put in place the framework for the rapid implementation of projects. The factors that are currently in place and in production reflect the underlying principle of the program, which is the equitable distribution of development projects around the country. The prospects of our becoming the automobile hub in West Africa are growing stronger every day.
Well, that was President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo at the State of the Nation address in 2021. Well, the question we asked this morning is, a feast or famine, who gets the final bite? A taste of scarcity is on the minds of many Ghanaians as we now go to the market and the prices of goods and farm produce are in the roof. Now, joining me on the phone line is Dr. Charles Nyaba. He's the head of programs and advocacy of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Also, Mr. Edward Kariwe is the general secretary of the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, John.
Great.
Good morning, Johnny.
Great. Let me start with you, Dr. Nyaba. You run a lot of Peasant Farmers Association here in Ghana. Tell me what the reality is on the ground from where you sit.
Okay, so thanks so much. Good morning, my good brother, Eddie. Yeah, so as we stand, when you enter the homes of many farmers who usually would store their grains to be released on the market to sell and used to buy inputs to cultivate, the warehouses are virtually empty. This is because the 2023-2024 farming season is not go too well for them due to several factors. Some are within our control, others are not within our control. Those that are not within our control has to do with climate change, which we are all aware. And we have, as a country, have not actually identified that as an area that we need to anchor to be able to develop the sector. You travel across the South region, even within our own neighboring countries, Burkina Faso, Togo, now they use investment in irrigation facility to address that. The reason why now Ghana have to depend on Burkina Faso for vegetables like tomatoes, pepper, and then even some of the cereals is because Burkinabés identified that faster, and they have created a lot of dugouts, a lot of boreholes for their youth. You go to a village closer to the Ghana border called Wadia, where most of our tomatoes that we get they come from in Burkina. Almost every community you see a dam there. So they are able to do that. But in our case, we haven't done that. So you take this year, for instance, after September, the rain stopped. So in the month of January, those who even did the dry season gardening, they have to pack their tools and leave because the water dried up. Small investment that we did in the existing irrigation, including the new one, the one village, one dam, could not actually serve the purpose for which they were created. So this is one of the problems. Now the other part has to do with lack of vision on the part of our Ministry of Food and Agriculture. When that happened, between the months of December, January, February, farmers were still able to produce some of the things. You take rice, you take soybeans, you take maize, for instance. Majority of farmers, the small that they produce, they were looking for market. We have engaged the ministers separately to the extent that the minister has sent somebody to go to the field to confirm the issues we're talking about, the fact that farmers just need to sell to be able to cater for some smaller business. So let us mock these commodities and store them. So around this time around, when the subsidies, we put them in the market. The need we discussed, I went back and forth with the ministry. By the end of the day, they refused. Fortunately, on the part of the farmers, Burkina Faso identified these shortage coming and they took lead. So they started trooping in and mopping up the maize, the limited maize, the limited soya beans. Okay, so the price were even better than what we wanted to mop up. So what is left in the market now? I mean, the demand is obviously higher than supply. You see, so what is left in the market now are what our middlemen and other business people took advantage to buy and stock. So because of the depreciation of the currency too, if you now go to those places to buy and add on to the small that we have, no matter how, the price will have to be high.
I see.
So these are some of the few factors that I can identify as the root cause of what we are experiencing now.
I appreciate this. Mr. Kariwe, you step in as well. You are also General Secretary, Ghana Agricultural Workers Union. What do you see on the ground by way of your initial comment to this subject matter?
Well, thank you, Johnny, for the opportunity. And then good morning to my friend, Dr. Nyaba. Certainly, what we are experiencing is a product of failure, policy failure. We have not been able to actually identify agriculture as a mainstay of the country. We have not been able to actually implement the policies that we have put in place to the letter. And you can't do wrong things and expect to have good outcomes. So what we are experiencing now is a reflection of the failure of policy and the lack of commitment on our part to implement our policies.
Now, let me put this question straight to you. Are we as a country, Ghana, on our way to the Hunger Games?
Well, it's yes and no. Yes, in the sense that the majority of Ghanaians who do not have the incomes to purchase food or to buy food will certainly experience severe hunger. When I talk about severe hunger here, is that these people will be compelled to divert their expenditures from other areas just to buy food. So we are heading for that. The no is that our society has become so unequal in terms of incomes. Those that have money, whatever form they got the money, will be able to buy food from the supermarket and to live. So they will not experience hunger. So we are on the path of slipping into a food crisis, and the majority of Ghanaians, particularly the poor, those who have not got incomes, will certainly experience food hunger.
Dr. Nyaba, do you concur? Yeah, I agree with him to some extent. But what I must say is that there is still some hope because the rains have just started.
Right.
Even though it's not the best, but we hope that once farmers are able to put out something and the harvest comes, it will at least smoothen the situation for a while. But in going forward, I don't think the approach of our Ministry of Food and Agriculture is the best. I say this because, you see, as Master Eddie said, we review the planting for food and job phase 1, bring it in phase 2, with a lot of different strategies to ensure that there is increased investment in the agriculture sector. When you say, the minister will always say, oh, okay, farming is a business, so why do you want government to come in? The question I keep asking is that, then what's the use of Ministry of Food and Agriculture if you think that farming is a business, you leave it in the hands of the farmers? Okay, it's a business, all right, that we see it. But the risks involved in that business and the fact that it also has security dimensions, you cannot just leave it in the hands of the farmers. There's no country that left its food sector in the hands of only the farmers. There are areas within that sector which is we call it farm goods. For instance, creating a feeder roads for farmers to be able to have access to their farms, creating warehouses to be able to store what is harvested, creating enabling environment for the farmers to be able to access financing. You need to do that, but we lost in all of that. Okay, so the planting for food and job phase 2 that came since 2023, if you ask any farmer, they'll tell you that even though so much money has been allotted to Ministry of Food and Agriculture, no single farmer can talk with authority of receiving any support from the ministry.
But then you go to the Ministry of Agri, for example, and the previous minister, you would see the minister trying to raise an argument suggesting that it is the market women who are trying to profiteer off the people. But then you go to the farm gates and the farm produce are there, they're available, they are cheap, and then somebody is trying to make the government look bad. To the extent that we even had, a whole supermarket or a whole market at the Ministry of Agri. How do we marry the two versus what you are saying?
I think that statement that you used to make is something that we keep disputing. We never accepted that was right. Because I say this, John, when you go to Tamale today, which is the center of most of the food items that we have, it will surprise you that the prices of food items in Tamale is almost the same as that of Accra. You go to Tekima, which we used to know is sort of a bread basket in terms of food. Prices are almost the same as that of Accra. Go to Wa, there are even some food commodities which are even, the prices are even higher than that of Accra. So what is the role of the market woman then? You see, for the role of the market women in the trade, we can't take them out. And I double as a farmer, I also work with traders and market women. The risks they take, sometimes you cannot even control the market and push all the costs on the consumer. Part of the reason why we keep seeing prices of food in Accra or the cities being higher is partly due to increase of fuel prices and other logistics that the traders will have to bear to bring the commodity to the nearest market.
Right.
And because they are at the higher side in terms of being able to predict the market, they are able to push the cost on the consumer. But for the farmer, we have no alternative. Whatever is given is what is taken. But for what is happening in 2024 right now has to do with supply deficit, which is partly has to do with lack of vision on the part of the ministry to do proper investment and to foresee this, to have mobilized what was there and then store and release it on the market for all of us.
I see. Mr. Kariwe, step in. So you seem to be singing the same tune like Dr. Nyaba. But then the simple question that the people want to know is that, have we harvested enough? Did we harvest enough in the previous year before getting into 2024 so that at least would have had that cushioning before the farming season sets in? That's always a question that people ask. What is your answer?
Well, it's clear that this country is fast running into food insecurity, and it has not started today. For the past 3-4 years, we have seen that food inflation has been the major cause of national inflation, to the extent that it is about 50% of national inflation. So it tells you about our inability to produce enough and the cost of food and its associated effect on national inflation. So the matter is not about today, except that we have not learned lessons. And as we have already alluded, whenever we raised those issues in the past, the ministry rejected our views and insisted that the Planting for Food and Jobs was successful to the extent that it was 100% successful. And if you have a policy that actually scored 100%, then there was no need to look somewhere for problems and then solutions into the future. And because of the denial of government in the past to accept that there were problems,
right,
that's where we have gotten to. And again, let me say that, look, just take this simple matter. Last year, we had not got good produce. And come the beginning of the year, it's the lean season. Now, the majority of Ghanaians who depend on local produce had to scramble for that particular supply. And unfortunately, this year again, government has virtually not invested anything in agriculture. They have not supported farmers. And then no matter how the rains come, you know, we can always try to rely on the magnanimity of nature. But rains alone cannot give us the desired yield. We must be able to have the inputs at the right quantities to be able to help the crops to grow and give us the desired yields. And not only rains. So you can just see that we have invested less this year. Farmers have not had inputs to put on their farms, and they are not going to get inputs further going into the future, because what I have learned is that even the allocation of that was put in the budget for 2024,
right,
real disbursements have not been given. So even though that budget allocation was not sufficient, for the Ministry of Agriculture, they have not even gotten the allocations that they needed. So certainly, as a country, we are investing less in agriculture, allowing farmers to depend on their own, who cannot buy the inputs. So we should not expect any better output this year. And then, therefore, the perennial price increases will remain. The only maybe consolation we can have is that when we get to the real harvest season, we may have some slight, not downward of the reduction of the prices, but prices will stabilize for some time, and then we'll have the spike again.
I see. Dr. Nyaba, you go to the market these days, and I'm sure you have seen that on social media, people complaining that I went to buy tomatoes, I was giving 4 pieces for 20 cedis. I went to buy garden eggs, same story, this, that. Now, a renowned statesman and consultant, etc., Dr. Ishmael Yamson, he's on record 7 months ago to have said that we spent money on planting for food and jobs. The jobs didn't come. The food didn't come. Could that be the answer to what people say when they go to the market and they are giving 6 pieces, 5 pieces of tomatoes for 20 cedis?
Yeah, partly. Partly because tomatoes is one of the vegetable commodities under the Planting for Food and Jobs, both phase 1 and 2. During our engagement on the onions crisis, the Minister of Food and Agriculture promised that the issue of relying on the Burkina for these vegetables were going to be a thing of the past, and that they were doing everything to ensure that there's increased investment to improve local production. But since then, what happened? When you take the onions, for example, all the farmers within Abubu and then Afram Enkli, they have come, we have engaged the minister, we have engaged the Minister of Finance, the current Minister of Finance, who was then the deputy. We discussed everything. We got the promise. Farmers went, prepared their land, came out with their budget. Even to get them to respond to the issues that the farmers were facing, never happened.
Right.
So limited quantity of seeds were given to farmers in Tono and Via. But we have technical agronomists within the Ministry of Food and Agriculture who knows very well the season for planting tomatoes. They brought the seeds around December. And tomatoes, under the usual planting season that we do for tomatoes, we always start the nursery around September. So that by the December, the tomato shoots would have started and getting ready for harvest. So the time they brought them, the tomatoes started flowering in February. And when flowers are coming, when the temperature is high, all the flowers will be aborted. And that was what happened. I've engaged the farmers, and majority of them have not even harvested a box of tomatoes. That is one. Secondly, I talked of climate change, which we fail to address. Most of the tomatoes that we get is from irrigation areas. And most of these irrigation facilities are either condemned, dams are either silted, canals are either broken with no efforts to fix them. When you take areas like Akuma Dam, Chobodom, Tichima, Wenchi, these were major tomato growing areas. Go there today. No farmer is interested in growing tomatoes again. They converted their tomato farms to growing cashew. So cashew is a cash crop. Once you do the initial investment, you don't have to spend so much to do any other expenses again. But with the tomatoes, you need to continue to invest. But it got a time, they produce so much, and if you get the market is not there. And now with tomatoes, you can't store it. So most of the farmers run into debt, others even cause suicide. So this year, we have very few people producing tomatoes. So all the tomatoes we are getting is coming from Burkina. And around this time too, their production is gone down. And because of the further depreciation of the CD against the CFA, when you even bring a box there, you have to peg it at a price that you'll be able to go back to buy again. And those that we are importing from South Africa and other Northern African countries too, the depreciation of the dollar is also affecting that one. So the prices we are seeing in the market is something that nobody should be surprised. But the factors, the existing factors that our policymakers fail to address led to where we are.
Now, if this is the nature and the tall list of things we are importing, to the extent that we're going to South Africa or in Burkina, we're supposed to have one village, one dam, which was supposed to help with all year round irrigation. So for crops like tomatoes, rice, all those 3-4 months, stuff that have 3-4 months gestation period, was supposed to be a thing of the past. That's why the president said we are a net exporter of food thanks to the Planting for Food and Jobs initiative. If I hear you right, we are no longer a net exporter of food. Is that correct?
You are right. Most of our food commodities, apart from those that our neighbors are not able to produce, like plantain, cassava, majority of the food stuff, we are getting them from our neighboring country. You talked of one village, one dam. Just let your reporters in Northern Ghana try to visit some of the villages right now to see the state of the dams. Those dams have not brought anybody to the agriculture sector in terms of people depending on the dam to produce whatever crop you talked about. Okay? So that was why we were strongly advocating for the construction of the polygon multipurpose dam. That would have actually done a better job for all the 5 northern regions, part of Oti and the Bono region. Here we are, so much money was spent on that and no work done. So if you put the blame on the policymakers as a farmer, I don't think we are getting it wrong. But the investment is the real investment is not actually getting to the main farmer.
I see. Mr. Kariwe, so you step in for me now. Now that we have been able to diagnose what the problem is, then the citizens will ask, but we were told of one warehouse, one district or so, and that we're going to have these warehouses dotted around so that whatever is harvested, because improved seedlings and subsidized farm inputs and all of that had been provided, then we will store this food in these warehouses. Question I want to ask you first is, are the warehouses there? Number 2, did we store any food in them? And if we did, why are we having the situation we have presently?
Yeah, Johnny, let me say that I'm surprised when a statement is made that Ghana has been a net exporter of food.
Why?
In the past decade, Ghana has not been a net exporter of food. When you talk about food, you should be talking about a number of items that make up the food. Are we talking about rice, that we're a net exporter of rice? Are we talking about maize? Were we talking about tomatoes? Were we talking about oranges? Or what? Which one? So you see, when you come out with this convoluted expression that we are a net exporter of food, we need to break it down. You see, so we have never been an exporter of food in the past decade. So that statement, if you subject it to strict proof, it's not there. Because when did Ghana stop importing tomatoes from Burkina Faso? In the past 7 years or 8 years. It has not happened. Isn't tomatoes food? What about rice? The records, official records. Is there any year within the past 7 years or 8 years that we have not imported rice into this country? So where come the statement that Ghana has been a net exporter of food? So we need to clarify that point and know that Ghana is far from. I mean, when you use that statement, we could have said that, okay, we are net exporter of maize. Then we can leave the others out, but not to say that Ghana is a net exporter.
But the president said this in Parliament as part of the State of the Nation address. So if you go to Parliament now, you pick the Hansard for the year 2021, it will be captured in there. Anybody who goes back to Parliament 20, 30 years from now will now go back to that 2021 record to say that, oh, indeed, in 2021, we had a president who addressed parliamentarians who mentioned that we are a net exporter of food. And that, if you claim it is falsehood, would have been injected into the narrative nice and easy. That's where the problem is.
You see, the point is that when His Excellency the President made that statement at that time, some of us disagreed with him. We said that he was fed with wrong information. The President was giving wrong information. And who would have given the wrong information? It would have been coming from his script writers and so on. So we requested that he should sack the Agri Minister, because as the person in charge of that sector, you can't make our president go and make statements that are untrue. So we made that point clear. So the president was fed with wrong information, and I don't think that he has stopped feeding him with wrong information in respect of the agri sector. So we need to make that point clear that Ghana has never been a net exporter of food. Food encompasses a number of things, and we can list them one after the other and put it to strict proof where we never exported or where we exported those goods and did not import them at all. We can do that.
So you're saying that the president was either misfed with information or was underfed with information?
No, he was misfed. It's not underfed. He was misfed because those who wrote that for him, who gave him that information, knew very well that we were not a net exporter of food.
Quickly address the conversation about the dams for me, the warehouses, for me. Where are they?
Where are they? Even the warehouses, the research or survey that was done, one, they were wrongly cited. Two, they never, farmers did not have access to them. Three, they were not fit for purpose. Four, some were not even completed. So, and if they are not fit for purpose, if farmers do not have access to them, and then how could they then become a source where farmers could store their food? When we say they are not fit for purpose, you cannot combine tomatoes warehouse with rice warehouse.
Right.
They are not the same.
The conditions are different.
You just don't go and build a 4 square room and you say that it is a store, a warehouse that can store anything. So to start with, that was the problem of it. And
right.
As we speak now, some of the warehouses are still locked up. Farmers do not have access to them. And in any case, you see, before you store things, it needs to be processed.
Right.
We all know that even manufactured goods, they forewarn us that we should keep them under a certain temperature in a room, or and so on and so forth. How much more raw food that you can just throw them into the room and lock it up, and that becomes what? A warehouse. Even apart from that, you also need to process the produce before you can store it and then monitor it. You see, so all these things are not available and they are not done, and therefore it makes even the few warehouses that are available not fit for purpose, and we need to do more if we actually want to store food for this country.
I see. Dr. Nya, about $12 million have been spent on the Poalugu multipurpose dam yet to be constructed, work yet to be done. But then we were told that that amount of money was for mobilization. You mentioned in your earlier submission that if the dam comes on, it means that it will cover a wide area, including Uti region, etc., etc. But we also know the reality of the unavailability of the dam and then the spillage of the Bagri Dam. It is coming again, and I listened to some of the harrowing stories of some of the farmers around there. They are doing pre-harvesting. You know, they have to quickly rush and go and harvest. They have to then wait for their farmlands to be destroyed. They come back at it again, start from scratch all of the time. Is there any hope for these farmers who have to go through this annual routine?
Yeah, so we have special interest in the Poalugu multipurpose dam, but we are so disappointed with the recklessness of our public officers who just take all of us for granted. Okay, you are going to implement a project. The essence of whatever money is spent is to see that project stand and deliver value for what it is meant for. You pay a whopping amount of almost $11 million US, and nothing. There's no sign of that project now. Even though we condemn the warehouses, we condemn the one village, one dam, but at least you go there and you see that there is something. Somebody can make an argument that the money was not enough. So this what is allocated has been able to do. Here is the case: a public officer who used a taxpayer whopping $11.9 million US, and that person is still in office. And justifying that is meant for mobilization. What if you ask the farmer? They say, "What is mobilization?" They want to see a dam. Okay, there's no dam. You pay so much money. If you don't have the money to do the complete execution, why will you raise money for only mobilization and you allow the whole thing to be a white-less helper? Okay, so for now, we are still looking at the vice president because this dam is situated in his hometown. When we did our demonstration, did engagement with Nairi, he invited us to the Black Star House.
Right.
We had a very good discussion with him. He promised that it was his signature project and that whatever it would take for him to raise funding to ensure that the dam is constructed, he was going to do that. At the time, we didn't even know that so much money was paid and no work was done. So we just wait for opportunity for him to come and tell us that 2 years after that engagement, what are in plan now? Because we are tired of promises. We heard these promises over and over and over. Look, if you go back to the video in 2019 when the president himself was there to launch that project,
right?
The way people were so excited and they were jubilating, which also contributed to him gaining votes in those areas. Go there and check. Majority of farmers around that area actually fought for NPP because of that dam. So we are not going to relax in our advocacy for that dam to be constructed. We are going to do serious engagement, and those are the questions we will put in for any presidential candidate who comes to the area to campaign.
Right.
We want to see the Poalugu multipurpose dam, not mobilization.
I see. Mr. Kariwe, now I ask you this question because you made an earlier comment about us as a country not recognizing, or appreciating agriculture. I ask you this question based on some conversations that some farmers have had with me. So, for example, they talk about the fact that there's no proper support in terms of if they want to plow their fields or they want to import those heavy machinery, they pay duty and everything like everybody else. Fuel for those machines are sold to them as is sold to everybody else. Price of water, if they have to use pipe-borne water, is sold to them like everybody else. Price of electricity, same. And then they ask the question that if they have to cushion themselves with all of these things, eventually they will pass the prices on to the people. Do you think we have gotten to the point where as a country we need to start focusing on arranging some subsidies of a sort for farmers within these areas that I mentioned so that we can all breathe at least?
Yeah, it's a point that we can never run away from. Subsidies is a developmental tool, and every country uses it. And no country in the world today has stopped using subsidy as a developmental tool. So I don't know why in Ghana we can choose not to use subsidy to push development forward. When it comes to agriculture in particular, all the developed countries, the United States, the European Union, and the rest are all subsidizing. Yet their system is so robust and so fair that even the farmers there could comfortably compete and have all that they needed. So it is just a tragedy for us as a country to say that we will not subsidize agriculture now. If in the course of implementing the subsidy there are problems, you address the problem. We don't cut out all the subsidy altogether. So you can see that we are where we are today because we are not thinking right and we are not doing the right things. And you see, Johnny, it is just so pathetic and heartbreaking that we will build a house here to house Kayaye, who have come from the areas that the pollution dam was supposed to serve. If you want to address a problem, why don't you go to the roots and address it?
All right.
So certainly we need subsidies. We also need to manage the subsidies. And in any case, who has been misusing the subsidy? Because when the subsidy for fertilizer and then certified seed was given,
right,
it was misused, and it was government officials that came out to say that the fertilizer was being smuggled out, and that they saw the fertilizer being smuggled out by animals like donkeys.
You mean the former agri minister and some officers of the ministry?
Of course, they came out to say that they saw it. They saw the smuggling of the fertilizer out by these animals, but they could not, arrest them because they were no human beings. In any case, even if they did not see, whose duty is it to ensure that there's no smuggling? It is government that is supposed to ensure that there's no smuggling of fertilizer that we don't produce in our country, and we use our scarce foreign exchange to import and then allow it to be smuggled out. So if you use that as a reason why you must stop subsidy, then again, government is complicit in the smuggling, in the sense that they fail to stop them smuggling. They know about the smuggling, they lament about the smuggling, and they find no solution to it. And then beyond that, they now say that they will punish the farmers by not giving them subsidies. And when they don't give subsidies, it is you and I who would have to contend with the high prices that we are talking about. Those who are making those policies have got enough resources to buy from the supermarket, to import food, and then to feed themselves. So again, you come to see that it will not be far-fetched to say that this is a deliberate attempt by all those who are having the power to implement policies and then also to design policies to impoverish all of us and then make themselves alone, and their families, the only people who can survive in the country.
I see.
And that is what we need to check.
Okay.
So I want to say that
yes, sir,
as for the subsidy, it is a must, and we must not allow government to run away from implementing policies. Like subsidy.
Dr. Nyaba, the farmlands, are they safe? Are they safe from estate developers? Are they safe from illegal miners? Are they safe from all the other encroachments. Tell me, what do you know?
Yeah, so before I come to that, let me just add a bit to
right, the subsidy conversation. Okay.
Apart from government even removing subsidies from agro inputs, what is even more worrying is the fact that now if you are bringing anything agriculture, they charge you duties like any other commodity,
right,
which we used to enjoy. So the cost of inputs to import either fertilizer, agrochemical, tractor alone, the price has doubled because of taxes that we are imposing on it. Now, to come to whether our farmlands are safe, you see, government is part of this whole program. Last week, when the president launched the Greening Ghana project, and they were putting figures of number of trees that are planted.
Right.
I said, what a mockery. How can you allow Galamsey to destroy mature trees, to take over productive farms, not only the farmland, productive farms, destroy all the food crops on it in search of gold. And now you go and provide trees for farmers to plant in an area that doesn't rain for more than 6 months, and you expect those trees to survive. I mean, are we serious of this, of what we are doing? You come to all the areas where we used to get the vegetables in the city. Go to Asama project, where we used to get our vegetables from Accra. All the lands have been encroached. Even Pong, as a irrigation, go there. Most of the farmlands are being encroached upon. Go to Asachore dairy farm. All the farms have been sold out. And it's the same thing across all the regions. When you go there, farmers now have to move back to go and farm. So our lands are actually virtually finished, which is partly due to attitude of our public officers who are supposed to safeguard and ensure that they implement policies to protect agriculture. But we don't really care anything about agriculture. Everybody is thinking about themselves, but nobody is thinking about food. When prices are increasing, then everybody puts blame on the farmer. I don't think we should be blamed. We should all channel our blame to the policymaker or the public officer who thinks that agriculture is not a sector that we need to pay attention to.
Mr. Zakari, well, now my closing question to you is, where do we go from here?
That is an easy question. It's an easy question, let me say that.
Give me the answer then.
But whether or not we will actually take the answer, it's easy because we need to just, do the right things. We know in our hearts that one, we make budget, make an allocation, and we don't disburse the money to the ministries or the institutions that are working on agriculture. We need to do that. 2, we know that Galamsey is devastating the land, destroying forests, river bodies, and even existing farms, and lands that would eventually be used for agriculture is destroying that. We need to stop that. 2, we know that climate change is here with us, and that we need irrigation. We should not be talking about irrigation, the Polgo Dam now, even because it should have been due for commissioning.
That's right.
When government, that so we need to embark on irrigation. I mean, again, if we don't stop the Galamsey, it means that the southern part of the country or regions where there's Galamsey, it means those regions can never be used for, no irrigation dam can be built there. Because when you build a dam, the water that will be collected there will become Galamsey water, and it cannot be used for irrigation. So these are the things we have to do. And then 3, we need to, the other one is we need to support farmers, provide them inputs at the right time, early before the farming begins. And then finally, we must check our import policies. We give out import policies that undermine domestic producers like farmers. For instance, if you look at the poultry and poultry products, the poultry industry is collapsed because it's not only about the cost of production, but also because there are cheaper and unhealthy imported policy that killed the industry. So for me, it is easy, but that I'm not sure whether we are ready to do the right thing to go forward as a country.
Dr. Nyaba, I put the same question before you. Where do we go from here?
Number one, we need to increase investment in irrigation because climate change is with us. Previously, if you travel across the country from the middle belt to the coastal area, farmers would have been preparing to actually apply fertilizer on their farms, and others would have been preparing to harvest. Today, you go there and they are not farming. The middle belt, for instance, farmers are only going to do the minor season farming because when the rains, they were expecting the rains for the major season, and the rains never came. So I spoke to most of them, and they are only preparing themselves for the minor season farming. You go to the northern part of the country, the rain just came in 2 days ago, and now that they are preparing their plots to plant. Previously, by now, crops were grown, and then they will be applying fertilizer. So we need to increase investment in irrigation. That one is non-negotiable. That's one. Two, today, no youth want to go into farming, simply because they wouldn't want to go and use coals and fertilizers. So as we are thinking of modernizing agriculture, we should also find a way of making it possible for people to access to mechanization. But many farmers, even rich people who are going to farming, cannot acquire a tractor or combine harvester today because the price is so high, and not because of the amount they purchase it from the producing countries, but because of the taxes that we impose on those commodities. So government need to remove all taxes on agro machinery, agro inputs, seeds, and agrochemicals to make it possible for people to be able to go into farming and mechanize their farms. Government also need to clearly come out with a policy on importation.
Right. be
cannot supporting your local poultry farmers, and when they produce, they can't sell. And you continue to allow these people to dump rotten chicken on us. That is not acceptable. We need to also invest in storage and post-harvest losses. As I mentioned earlier, if we are having good storage, we have pack houses where we store some of the vegetables. By now, we wouldn't be complaining of the prices that we have, because we allow the small one that we were put in the market to be bought by our neighboring countries. So if that is done, no matter how small we produce, even though the prices would have gone up, it won't be as it is now. So I think there are many of them, but these are a few that I can use.
Somebody just sent a message in. I'm sure that will set the tone for our next conversation, gentlemen. But I'll give you 30 seconds bite on each as the final tasty bite to this sweet meal we've just had. What do you think or make of STC getting a loan from ADB, the Greek-centered bank, to be able to buy buses, and then yet people who want to get into farming cannot get financing from ADB? 30 seconds each. Dr. Nyaba, I'll start with you.
To me, I have said it over and over that if ADB is indeed a Greek bank, then I think that we should change the name, because it is not. Myself, I have operated with ADB for long. With our company, we have never gotten any loan from ADB. Anytime you even go and then they look at your bank statement, it's looking good. The moment they ask and say you are going to invest in production, no. Nobody, no loan officer wants to discuss with you. And that's the reality. So for ADB to see investment in SPC as a priority compared to agriculture sector, that tells you why we are suffering. Okay. There are many people who took interest in farming, but they cannot get any loan. Even if you are taking loan, you have to pretend that you are taking the loan for a different purpose and go and use it for farming. If you say you are using it for farming, you are never going to get that. So for us, we think that government need to actually do something, create an environment that will allow anybody who wants to invest in agriculture to be able to access loan with low interest rate and then also in flexible terms.
Zekaiwe, what do you say?
Well, what we are just experiencing, that ADB granting a loan to STC to buy buses instead of granting same to farmers, is a manifestation of the lack of direction or misdirection of the economy. ADB, STC can go to any other bank to take a loan for that purpose. But here we are. We don't know the focus that our focus is not clear now. We have ADB, and then it can give loans to at the disadvantage of farmers. When other banks, can easily do that. So again, it just reflects the chaotic nature of our policy management in this country. Who cares? Who is directing what? ADB should not only be there when it gets to Farmers' Day, then they will be made to sponsor most of the Farmers' Day activities. And when it comes to real assistance to farmers, they deny them. So it's unfortunate, very, very, very unfortunate that this is allowed to happen, and then farmers need assistance and they will not get.
Thank you, Mr. Edward Kariwe. He's the General Secretary of the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union. Grateful for your time. And also Dr. Charles Nyaba is the Head of Programs at the...
Former Executive Director.
Former Executive Director. Thank you very much, Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Gentlemen, it's been a great morning. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Helen, do you feel hungry?
Oh, I feel famished.
Okay.
In fact, and if you are wondering why the price of food is so high, why you're spending so much money,
we just gave you the answer.
We just gave you the answer. And listening to these two gentlemen, I'm not filled with confidence at all. Just across the board, from policy decisions, inactions from those in power, it is directly affecting our pockets. I mean, the fact that food inflation alone drives the overall inflation of the nation,
right,
and that accounts for 50% of the overall inflation, should let you know that if something isn't done drastically and quickly as well, we could be facing food insecurity, as you heard the two gentlemen say there. And then we talked about the Pualugu Dam, and it was for good reason that we were highlighting this issue some weeks back, because this was supposed to help with agriculture, especially as far as tomato production is concerned. And now we're told we're even importing tomato from South Africa, Burkina Faso, and the like. I mean, something has to give. Talk about the incentives or a lack of incentives for those that are involved in agriculture. Where does one go to get these incentives?
Okay, where does one go?
How many years of planting for food and jobs? We didn't get the food, we didn't get the jobs, but the money was